The Tiara Club at Silver Towers, Princess Daisy, and the Magical Merry-Go-Round. Hello, I'm Daisy, Princess Daisy, and I do hope you are enjoying being at Silver Towers with us. You're exactly the right kind of princess, just like my lovely friends Charlotte, Katie, Alice, Sophia, and Emily. And not at all like a Diamond and Gruella. They're so big-headed. Do you get nervous before you do something new? I do. I try so hard not to, but I can't help it. And learning to be a perfect princess means we are always doing new things or going to new places. Chapter 1. We were sitting in the homework room when Princess Freya came zooming in. Have any of you seen the notice board? She gasped. There's a garden fair on Saturday and a flower petal ball afterwards. Can't stop. Got to tell everyone. Bye! And she was gone. We stared at each other for a moment and then Shella snatched up her books. Quick, she said. Let's go and have a look. The notice board is outside the breakfast hall. And if there are any school events or invitations, Lady Albina pins them up. We're expected to check the board regularly, but we aren't always very good at remembering. Anyway, we hurtled down the stairs, but we weren't the first there. Loads of princesses were staring at the huge invitation pinned to the board. You are all invited to King Percival's Royal Garden Fair this Saturday, 3 p.m. until 8. Listen to the royal brass band, wander in the flower gardens, row on the lake, ride on the marvelous merry-go-round, and be the day will end with a flower petal ball. Wow, said Charlotte. That sounds so brilliant. And it's Saturday tomorrow. Alice's eyes were shining. I adore merry-go-rounds, she said. Let's all have a go together, and we can whirl round and round and round. Yes, Emily and Katie sounded just as thrilled as Alice. Merry-go-rounds are the best, Sophia said. What do you think, Daisy? Yes, I said. It'll be fun. And I hoped I sounded as if I really truly meant it. Does that sound odd? The trouble was, I'd been secretly hoping we wouldn't have another trip out for a little while. We'd been to King Percival's before, so I knew that bit would be all right, but I wasn't at all sure if I liked the idea of a merry-go-round. I'd never been on one, and I was certain I'd do something silly like getting dizzy and falling off. For a moment, I wondered if I could pretend to be ill the next day. But then I remembered I was trying to be a perfect princess and earn enough tiara points to win my silver sash and a palace at Ruby Mansions. Perfect princesses, I told myself firmly. Don't tell lies. And they tried to be brave. Sophia was still looking at the invitation on the board. It doesn't tell us what to wear, she said. Do we have to dress as flowers for a flower petal ball? Princess Diamond and her twin sister Grilla heard her, and Diamond sniggered. Sophia could go as a dandelion, couldn't she, Grilla? All the Silver Rose roomers could go as weeds, Grilla said, and the two of them collapsed in a fit of giggles. Sophia totally ignored them and took my arm. Shall we go and ask Fairy Angora? I nodded. Fairy Angora is the fairy godmother at Silver Towers, and she was sure to know. Fancy! Sophia's actually had a good idea. Diamond said loudly, Gorilla, why don't we see Fairy Angora at break time? And she flounced away. Quick, Katie said. Let's go right now. The six of us hurried along the corridor. and knocked at Fairy Angora's door. Do come in. Fairy Angora has the loveliest tinkling voice. Door. Open! The door turned a glowing pink, but it stayed shut. Sometimes Fairy Angora's magic just doesn't work. Alice grinned and turned the handle, and we trooped inside. Fairy Angora was sitting at her desk, which had a vase of gorgeous apple blossom on it. What can I do for you, my darlings? She asked. Please, Sophia said. We're not sure what to wear tomorrow. Wear your prettiest summer dresses, angels, Fairy Angora said. Something fresh and flowery. They'll be perfect for the fair and the flower petal ball. We looked at each other anxiously. None of us had flowery dresses. Don't worry, darlings, Fairy Angora has seen our faces. Pop in here after lessons with what you've got. She waved at her vase. I've been practicing a little flowery magic, so we'll see what I can do. But don't be late, my angels. I've got a meeting with King Percival, and I mustn't keep him waiting. Chapter 2. Of course, we felt much better after seeing Fairy Angora. In fact, we didn't really concentrate all that day because we were so busy wondering what our dresses would look like, which wasn't a good idea at all. Queen Mother Matilda gave us 2 minus points each for whispering during our lesson in the gracious acceptance of royal bouquets, and then Crown Prince Dandino told me off for not paying attention when he was showing us how to step out of a coach with dignity and poise. You must stay in for an extra half an hour after classes, he ordered, and practice. I begged him to let me go, but he wouldn't change his mind. Emily and Sophia pleaded with him too, and then he said we all had to stay. It was awful. As soon as he let us go, we dashed up to Silver Rose's room to collect our dresses, and then zoomed down to Fairy Angora's room. We lined up outside her door, and that's where Lady Albina saw us. May I ask exactly what you girls are doing? She asked. She never sounds very friendly. Alice says her big sister reckons Lady Albina doesn't like anybody except Queen Samantha Joy. Please, Katie said. We are here to see Fairy Angora. Well, you won't find her here, Lady Albina snapped. She's having a very important meeting with King Percival, and she won't be free until the garden fair tomorrow. As Lady Albina swept away, we looked at each other blankly. No flowery dresses, Sophia said, and she sounded so sad. I felt completely terrible. If only I'd paid attention during Prince Dandino's lesson, we'd have been in time to catch Fairy Angora. Emily knew what I was thinking and squeezed my hand. At least we'll all be the same, she said. Think how horrible it would be if half of us had fabulous flowery dresses and the others didn't. That's right, Alice was pretending to be cheerful. Who wants to look like a flower bed anyway? Yes, Charlotte actually managed a smile. Let's be different. I didn't say anything. I was trying hard not to cry. We did our best to look summery for the garden fair. Alice and Katie both had gingham check dresses, and Sophia's was white with a little pink stripe. Emily's dress had blue spots, and Charlotte and I were both wearing pink. They were pretty dresses, but when we saw what the other princesses were wearing, we did feel very ordinary. Oh! Diamond thrilled when she saw us. It's the weeds! She twirled around so we could see the lovely twirls of honeysuckle on her rustling silk skirts. Our mother always make sure we have dresses for every occasion, Gorilla told us, and she and Diamond smirked at each other. Gorella's dress was sprinkled with the sweetest little primroses, and there were more primroses on her tiara. I couldn't help thinking that even though she's not always very nice, she did look gorgeous. Everybody ready? Crown Prince Dandino was waiting at the door. Hop in the coaches and we'll be off. We hung back a little as the coaches filled with the chattering princesses. We can still have fun, Emily said bravely. That's right, Sophia suddenly sat up and smiled. I'm sure perfect princesses don't mind what they wear. Of course they don't, Katie said firmly. Diamond will have to be really careful of her dress, Charlotte pointed out. She was tripping over it just getting into the coach. Alice grinned. Let's go on the merry-go-round as soon as we get there. Agreed? Everyone shouted yes, and I did too, although I had a wobbly feeling in my stomach. Just in case anyone noticed, I said, is it all right if we go for a boat ride on the lake straight afterwards? I love boats. Fine by me, Ellie said cheerfully, but I saw Sophia and Emily look at each other. What's wrong? I asked. Um, Emily said, and she was blushing. I'm really sorry, but I don't like the water very much. I'm hopeless at swimming. It's horrid being scared of things, Sophia said. You mustn't worry, Emily. I'm always terrified if I think I can't put my feet on the bottom. Chapter 3. I looked at my friends and felt so much better, but I also felt a little bit mean. They'd been brave enough to say they were scared, and I hadn't. Actually, I said, can I tell you something? They looked at me in surprise. Can't you swim either, Daisy? Asked Katie. It's not that, I said. It's the merry-go-round. It makes my legs go wobbly every time I think about it. There was a second's silence, and then we all began to laugh. It was as if a huge weight had fallen off me, and I think Emily and Sophia felt a little bit the same. Right, Alice said. We'll all look after each other. First, we'll try the merry-go-round, and then the boating lake, and if anyone wants to sit and watch, that's totally okay. And we solemnly shook hands. We were much the last to arrive at King Percival's palace. The coach we were supposed to travel in had a loose wheel, and we had to wait while Prince Dandino organized another one. It was so frustrating. By the time we finally got there, we were absolutely bursting with excitement, even if we weren't wearing flowery dresses. We totally tumbled out of the coach. It was a good thing Prince Dandino didn't see us, and stared around. King Percival's gardens looked beautiful. Silver balloons were tied on every bush and tree, and they looked so pretty as they shone in the sunshine. But the princesses and princes and queens and kings who were wandering around didn't look as if they were having a particularly wonderful time. We saw Princess Lisa and Princess Jemima, and they were sitting at the edge of the lake looking so bored. What's the matter? I asked. Aren't you having fun? Princess Lisa shook her head. There's nothing much to do. The brass band hasn't turned up, the merry-go-round isn't working properly, and there are only two boats on the lake, and Princess Eglantine and Princess Nancy have been hugging them for ages. We're just hanging about waiting for the flower petal ball. Oh dear, I said, but Alice pulled at my arm. I can see the merry-go-round, she said, her eyes sparkling. Let's have a look at it. Emily held one of my hands as we walked across the grass, and Sophia the other. As we got closer, I could see the merry-go-round did look amazing. It had the prettiest little coaches and carriages pulled by the sweetest silver ponies, and there, standing right in front of it, was Fairy Agora. She was deep in conversation with King Percival, who was looking very gloomy. Maybe we could ask her about our dresses, Sophia whispered. She looked too busy at the moment, Ellie said. Why don't we try to have a go on the merry-go-round? Do let's, Emily said. Daisy can share with me, and then she'll be fine. Okay, Daisy? I nodded, and I was just stepping into a sweet little carriage when Diamond and Gorilla appeared. Oh, Gorilla almost smiled. That looks fun. She climbed in and sat beside me before I could say anything. Diamond frowned. Gorilla, merry-go-rounds are for babies, she sniffed, but she pushed me to one side so she could splash into. Emily made a sympathetic face at me and sat down in the carriage next to mine. Will you be all right? She asked. Oh, is poor little Daisy scared? Diamond asked. I smoothed my skirts and tried to look calm. I'm quite all right, I said, and I so hoped it was true. The merry-go-round began to turn, but it went so slowly. I kept thinking it was about to speed up, but it didn't. It lurched and shuddered as if it was about to stop any second, and it squeaked terribly. King Percival and Fairy Agora looked up just as my carriage drew level with them. Oh no, King Percival groaned. Still going slow. What? Typical. Everything's going wrong. He glared at Fairy Agora. That's the trouble with magic. You can't rely on it. I'm going to find the royal engineer. He stamped away across the grass. Fairy Agora was looking very flustered. Poor King Percival, she said. Even the royal brass band hasn't arrived yet. Couldn't you use your wand to make things better? I asked. Fairy Agora hesitated. I have been helping my angel, she said. I was here yesterday for ages, sorting things out, she sighed. Sometimes I think my magic isn't very good. I felt so sorry for her. It wouldn't take much magic to make the merry-go-round work, would it? Diamond sat back, folded her arms, and sneered. Silly Daisy. She means she can't make it work. Chapter 4. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe she'd been so rude. Fairy Agora went bright pink and looked really angry. Princess Diamond, she said, take 10 minus Tiara points and come and see me in my office tomorrow. She tapped our silver pony on its nose. And for your information, young lady, I certainly can make this merry-go-round work. There was a flash, a shower of stars, and our silver pony neighed, shook its head, and charged off the merry-go-round with our carriage rattling behind it. And at once all the other ponies followed. I hung on tightly as we bumped and bounced over the grass. Diamond and Gorilla screamed and screamed and screamed. On either side the princess shrieked and ran, and I could see Lady Albina staring at us with her mouth wide open. The ponies swerved around a flower bed and dashed straight for the lake. They zoomed up to the edge and hurled themselves in. As they swam out towards the middle of the lake, there was a shower of silver stars, and they vanished. It was so strange. Suddenly, we were floating peacefully on the water. Diamond was still screaming, and Gorilla was wailing, and they were going to be drowned. but it really did feel safe. I could see crowds gathering at the edge of the lake, and poor King Percival wiping his forehead and trying to calm everyone down. But I didn't feel scared at all. But then I remembered Emily and Sophia, and I turned to look at them. Their coaches were floating behind mine, and they were smiling at me, although I did think they looked rather pale. Alice and Katie and Charlotte were grinning from ear to ear, so I knew they were fine. I peered out of our carriage, and it rocked wildly. Diamond and Gorilla screeched, but I didn't take any notice. The water was very clear and clean, and it didn't look deep. In fact, it didn't look very deep at all. I took my shoes off. Daisy's going to leave us here to drown, Gorilla moaned. Oh no, I want Mommy, Diamond howled. I stepped out of the carriage and the water only just reached the hem of my dress. Come on, I said to Gorilla and Diamond. I'll hold your hands. As we all reached the shore, there was a loud cheer, and King Percival stepped forward to help us onto the bank. Well done, young Daisy, he said. Sorry about that. Was almost sure something would go wrong. Shouldn't have tried to mess with magic, But at that moment, King Samantha Joy came sailing through the crowd with Fairy Agora close behind her. I think, Queen Samantha Joy said, and her voice was shaking because she was so angry. We need a very good explanation, King Percival. There seems to be something extremely unusual about your merry-go-round. If it hadn't been so awful, it would have been funny. King Percival looked like a naughty boy who'd been caught stealing apples. He hung his head and shuffled his feet, and that was when I stepped forward. Chapter 5. Excuse me, Your Majesty, I said, and I curtsied as low as I could. It's not King Percival's fault. It was me. I stopped to swallow hard. You see, I suggested that Fairy Angora use magic on the merry-go-round. I'm truly sorry, but I had to stop. Fairy Angora was waving her wand at me. It wasn't Princess Daisy's fault at all, she said. It was mine. Harumph! King Percival made the loudest snorting noise. Nothing of the kind. All my fault. Wanted to have a good day. Did she persuaded Fairy Angora to do me a favor. Had her making magic all yesterday, you see. Got her to turn my carriage ponies into merry-go-round ponies. Stupid, really. Should have known I'd mess up. Humble apologies, Your Majesty. Won't happen again. I see. Queen Samantha Joy's voice was shaking so much I couldn't help staring at her. And now she seemed to be laughing. Well, King Percival, I have to tell you that I usually find garden fairs a touch on the boring side, but I shall always remember this one. But we didn't think it was funny, Diamond said, glaring. That's right, Gorilla said. We nearly drowned. Fairy Angora whispered something to Queen Samantha Joy. Our head teacher looked at Diamond and she was suddenly very serious. If I am correct, Princess Diamond, it was you that made Fairy Angora so angry she forgot to behave in a suitable, responsible manner. There is a coach waiting at the entrance to the garden, and I suggest you and your sister go straight back to Silver Towers to think about your attitude. The rest of us will continue enjoying the fair. King Percival, do I hear your brass band? They must have arrived after all. Queen Samantha Joy tucked her arm into King Percival's and walked him away. She had almost disappeared into the crowd when she turned and called, Fairy Angora, do see these poor girls don't catch their death of cold. Fairy Angora was standing staring at the lake, a puzzled look on her face. When she heard Queen Samantha Joy, she jumped. Oh, you poor little darlings! She looked at our damp dresses. Oh, 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 I remember now. You were going to come and see me yesterday about your dresses, but I had to rush off and meet King Percival. Oh, I'm so very, very sorry. What a terrible time you've had. She pulled her wand out of her bag and blew on the end of it. Now, let me see. Can I get this right, do you think? She twirled her wand in the air, and we gasped. Our dresses were totally amazing. It was as if they'd been made from a froth of pink and white apple blossom, with slimmery pink petticoats. They were the most gorgeous dresses I'd ever seen, and we had glittery pink shoes to match. Thank you, we chorused. Thank you very much. Fairy Angora beamed. They have turned out well, haven't they? She said. Now, if I could only work out what happened to those ponies. Look, it was Katy, and she was pointing at the lake. There they are. They are trotting out of the water, and they are not even wet. She rubbed her eyes. But they're not silver anymore. They're real. Of course they are, Fairy Angora said, sounding very relieved. And I'm so pleased to see them. I couldn't think what I was going to say to King Percival if they'd really gone for good. Now, are we going to help me catch them? Maybe you'd like to ride them across the crystal tower. It must almost be time for the flower petal ball. Of course we were thrilled, and as we rode around the palace ground and up to the crystal tower, we felt like the most perfect princess in the whole wide world. Chapter 6. Have you ever been to a flower petal ball? It was so magic. You couldn't see the walls for the garlands of flowers, and as we danced, petals drifted in the air. The scent of roses and lavender and honeysuckle was everywhere, and beautiful butterflies fluttered from blossom to blossom. As the evening grew darker, silver stars floated up into the velvet night sky, and tiny twinkly lights shone in among the glossy ivy leaves that twisted around the tall stone pillars. King Percival's royal orchestra played the sweetest music, and we danced until our feet were sore, and our gorgeous apple blossom dresses glimmered and shimmered in the twilight. It was absolutely heavenly. When we finally rolled home to Silver Towers, I was so tired. We hung our gorgeous dresses up and whispered good night to each other as we crawled into bed. Thank you for a lovely time, Daisy, Emily said sleepily. Me? I said surprised. I didn't do anything. Yes, you did, Katy yawned a huge yawn. You made it a fun day. I didn't exactly mean to, I said. Anyway, it was fun because we're there together. And I meant it. Friends are the best thing ever. And I'm so glad you are our friend too.